The Cats Whiskers podcast is proudly sponsored by the Bunkers Hill Hockley. Don't miss Panthers game day offers, including Coors Light at £2.50 a pint.
It is Monday, the 5th of March 2018. And it's a bit of a funny week because this is the Ask TCW podcast and we're live. Hello, good evening and welcome. No, your ears are not deceiving you. Although it is Monday, we are doing Ask TCW tonight on account of the fact that if this were a Monday night review show, we would have absolutely nothing to talk about. So it's going to be a bit of a weird one this week while we get ourselves back righted, but stick with us. We do have a review show later on in the week on Thursday where we will be discussing the two games, midweek games from this week at home against the Dundee Stars and Milton Keynes Lightning. Don't worry, there is a review show coming. If you would like to get in touch with us while we are recording tonight, easiest way to do that is to go on Twitter and find us at Cats Whiskers TV. Use the hashtag AskTCW and we will read out as many of your comments or additional questions as we have time for. But joining me tonight to talk about the ones that we already have are Antoine Marijan.
Evening.
And Paul Barn.
Hello.
Right, okay, let us kick off with the first question. And this one I do find quite interesting. In case you weren't aware, there have been some rumours flying around that we're going to see the return of an old friend, if you will, in the shape of the Newcastle Vipers. Rumours fuelled by a Wikipedia entry. That hints that they may be returning to the Elite League in 2018, which would obviously put them into the 18-19 season. So, Martin Juanu asks, with the rumours of a return for the Newcastle Vipers beginning to make the rounds, A, can a team playing out of Whitley Bay be sustainable? And B, does this mean the end of the Capitals? Ant, kick us off with that one, please.
It doesn't look good for the Caps at the moment, does it? There was a YouTube thing came out last week, which was actually quite, well put together, and it's quite shocking that they've not even won 200 games, is it, since they formed, been part of the Elite League. So they've been treading on borrowed time, if you like, for a while. So what's best without some serious investment? I can't really see Edinburgh going anywhere. So is it better for their fans just to say, enough's enough, and just knock it on the head? With regards to A, the Guildford aren't doing too badly. They've not got the biggest rink in the world. From what I remember about Whitley Bay, apart from being ridiculously cold, for me, it's colder than Edinburgh, and not having any lines. Don't know. It'd be interesting. It'd be nice to see the Vipers back because it'd be lovely to see a team in that sort of region. And, it could be another push maybe to get Hull back in the league because it'd give them another close-ish game. It'd be nice to see the Vipers back. Whether it's sustainable in the long run, it'd only work if the fans get in, and that was their main problem originally.
Yeah. Now, I mean, Paul, in terms of this question, one thing that I don't, maybe found interesting is sort of the phrasing of the question. I mean, does Part A necessarily reflect Part B? I mean, are the two parts related, I suppose?
I don't know. I mean, but people are always going to, the way things are at the moment, put the two together. I mean, that news article that came out last week about our game against the Caps, did we know before that they'd filed for bankruptcy or whatever it was, insolvency?
There was something around and about. I forget whether it was liquidation or whether it was a winding up order or what. Yeah, but that was back in November, I believe.
Yeah, I mean that doesn't bode well, and I think nobody in Edinburgh is going to like me for saying this, but I think the time has come for Scott Neal basically to it's make or break. There is a problem in Edinburgh. One way or another, they're not getting people in. I mean, there were more of our fans there last week than theirs, and the last time I remember that happening was it was November the 11th, 2005, could be 2006, in London. And look what happened to them not long after. But I don't know if the two are linked. And the thing that worries me, in a way, is that we're surmising here that a Wikipedia article is right. I mean, I remember the Wikipedia article for Durham Wasps once said that Rick Bant was a good player, but a bit of a knob. Now, it got changed. A, it got changed quickly, and B, I'm not sure it was that far from the truth. But and the thing that worries me is what's happened in Newcastle before. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love to see top level hockey back at Whitley Bay. Just, if nothing else, and again, I'm probably going to upset people, for new fans to see what hockey rinks used to look like. They'll be coming out of Fife thinking it's palatial. I mean, I think they've actually got plastic seats in there now. They're basically just screwed to the what we thought was seating, but I think we were supposed to stand up on it. But but that'd be an improvement if you were in Edinburgh. If they had that, it would. I mean, larger gentlemen like ourselves, aren't we? Those seats. Were people really that narrow in the 30s? But, I mean, Whitley Bay, I mean, the stories, I could tell you stories all night about Whitley Bay. Things like the fact that I don't know if they still are, but the benches were not at ice level. They were at the sort of level with the feet were level with the top of the boards and were just essentially an area of the seating. Wonder, yeah. I mean, it's just, but going back to the question, if I can remember, good job, I've got the questions in front of me to remember what it was. I don't know. I hope more than anything that maybe Edinburgh can turn something around. Maybe we're talking about an addition here, and obviously we're going to need more than one addition. But I mean, if there's anybody for making numbers change in the Elite League, I mean, the only people who have had 5 balls in a draw when there were 4 teams, maybe 13 can go into 12. I doubt it somehow, but
about old for 14.
You'd have to be looking at 14, maybe even more. You could do it with 15, but then they have to be the right teams. There's no point just bringing teams in to make the numbers up.
Indeed. I mean, for me, I cannot disagree with anything that you said, and I am one of those fans who have no knowledge of Whitley Bay, so that would be an education for me, I think. Yeah.
Well, let's put it this way: the last time I went to Whitley Bay, we had Dan Green in goal. We were winning and then conceded 2 late goals at the end of the game. I dared Paul Radford to go topless in the first period until either the end of the first period or the first goal went in. And the first goal went in after about 19 and a half minutes. The poor lad had turned blue.
Epic.
And I still think he's feeling it now.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, like you say, Paul, I would like to think that, for the sake of the fans, the long-suffering fans of the Edinburgh Capitals, that, something can be done. Previous evidence suggests that it's not going to happen and they're doomed. And I feel for them if that's the case. I mean, what do you do? As a fan, what do you do then? Do you go and just go and support the SNL team? Maybe you'll see a few more wins if you do that. But yeah, it would be nice to see the Elite League continue to expand rather than having a 1-in, 1-out, as looks not likely, but feasible at the moment. The Caps are in trouble. The Caps are in a lot of trouble. There's a lot of bad feeling between the fans and the management. I don't think the players like it all that much. The situation that they're in, but. Yeah, I would like Ant says as well. I'd like to see some Elite League hockey in that area of the country. That would be nice. Maybe the Hull Pirates will consider bringing a team from Hull back up into the Elite League one day. We just don't know. But fingers crossed that rather than a 1-in, 1-out, we're going to be looking at some sort of epic turnaround. But yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Well, it'd be nice if they could get some sort of buy-in like they did with Manchester, because the Manchester is, for me, a massive success story at the moment. I mean, you're taking a franchise that had not existed for 20-ish years. It had been replaced by the Phoenix, and the Phoenix then sort of bombed, and unfortunately no longer exist as well. But they've managed to make that into they're getting fans in through the door. They're having a fantastic season this year. So for me, that's a huge success, and that for any sort of new team starting up or a team coming back, if you're talking the Vipers, you just have to look at what Manchester have done. And I know that particularly they engaged a lot with the fans, didn't they? They did a lot of social media and stuff like that. So if you can get somebody behind the club that is in the same vein, then there is no reason why Edinburgh can't make a success of it. And a new team from the northeast would be nice.
Well, it's funny you're saying that, Anne, because we've had a question from 46233 Sam.
Yeah, I was going to move on to that one. So thank you. Thank you for seeing the seamless connection.
And if you'd not said anything, that would have been so much better.
Yay!
So anyway,
I like to read a good link.
Sam asks, if you were to take over Edinburgh Capitals tomorrow, what would you change on and off the ice? Include Murrayfield Arena itself if you wish.
Yes.
I'm sure there's plenty to go at. Oh, God.
We could probably devote a podcast just to what we do with the Edinburgh Capitals, to be honest.
Yes.
Well, look, I'll tell you the biggest problem they've got is the arena.
Yes.
Yeah.
How there is Edinburgh is a place that is rich in culture, things to do, this, that, and the other, and so Edinburgh, is a couple of football teams, this, that, and the other. So Edinburgh Capitals are fighting for the money, and the biggest thing they've got is come and watch ice hockey. It's great. It's a fast sport. So this, that, and the other. And some of they've done some pretty good stuff around that. And then you go there, and much as like talking about Whitley, and it's where Brett Bleedy's dad played his first game over here, Whitley, but that's irrelevant. But you've got this old, tired building with seats that may once have been quite comfortable, but aren't anymore, and you've got to somehow dress that up to bring people in, and then if what you've got on the ice isn't working either, it's then incredibly difficult to keep people coming back.
Yeah, well, I mean, so some of those seats in that rink, I swear that they have got dust on that has been there since the place was built.
Well, there were times when they used to get decent crowds. When Edinburgh, but Murrayfield as they were then, were a good team. Trust me, they used to win. Well, they used to win games. They used to win stuff in the days of people like Maury Hansen, Chris Kelland, Tony And, Paul And, Paul Levy. We could go on.
I understand Tony Ann's just got an assist on tonight's game. There's not even a game being played.
The old ones are the best.
Yeah.
I mean, what would you two change?
Well,
I mean, there were. Sorry, Tina.
No, you crack on. No, you crack on, mate. You crack on.
Okay, right. Well, I'm going to build on a rumor that floated. I think it was over the summer, in that the rugby stadium wanted to expand, and it was all to do with the car parking. So they were looking primarily at knocking down the ice rink to build the car park, to extend the car park.
Mm.
But because of that, they would actually fund the building of a new rink in the city centre. That is the best thing that could happen to Edinburgh if that ever came to fruition. You'd only need probably 2,500 max seats. I wouldn't do a Cardiff. I wouldn't leave it at that. I'd leave it as, put it there, but with the potential to go bigger. Because if you can get it working as a success, it's a capital city. It's full of students. You've got that on its own there. You've got a huge selling point potentially there. Yes, they may not be fans that will come in 5, 6, 7 years down the line, but if you can refresh that with students and what have you, alongside that hardcore fan base, there's no reason you can't get 1,500, 2,000 in that rink. So if the miracle was to happen and the rugby stadium did go, we're going to buy you out because we want the land. However, we will fund a new rink in the city centre. That would be the best thing to happen for the Capitals, and then you can build from that. Yes, it won't be an overnight thing because you're going to have to win back the faith of the fans. But yeah, I mean, for me, that would be a dream scenario because I don't want the Capitals to go. I don't want any teams to leave. I enjoy going, my trips to Edinburgh. I just don't enjoy going to that rink. And like Paul said, I think the rink is the biggest issue. But if you can get the rink done, and then you can start slow. Maybe do you go all out the first season in and spend the money on the players and what have you to get some success, to bring the fans in, and then revert to bringing in cheaper players to just maybe sustain a level of hockey get a level of hockey that's sustainable. That, I mean, you have to spend to accumulate, unfortunately.
Well, and I would say that's part of the problem. I think the current organisational structure of the Edinburgh Capitals just don't have the money to bring in, the kind of calibre of players and coaching that they need to challenge. They have to try and get over the hurdle of the arena. And then actually put the product on the ice. So, yes, I think we're all in agreement that arena needs to either have a major overhaul or it needs to go. That's something I think is quite sort of unanimous, really. It's fine. It is, it's got lots of history. It's a lovely old building, but it's just not fit for purpose. It's just not. I mean, if you were going to keep the building itself, you just need to take the renovators' approach to it. Just rip the guts out of the place and just start from scratch. I mean, I've heard horror stories about the electrics and the plumbing in the dressing rooms and such things like that. The whole place just needs to start again. I'm sure with the best will in the world, the volunteers want do the best that they can with that building and all the people that work there, but it's terrible, it's horrendous, and it's got to be sorted because like you say, Paul, biggest barrier that they've got for me as well. I mean, buckle up, boys and girls, because like Ant says, we could spend a whole show on this, but if you can only
if you build it, they will come.
Well,
here we go.
Well, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, yeah. I mean, one thing that probably doesn't need sorting is the webcast. If a team like Edinburgh have got it, enough about them to get a webcast. Nottingham Panthers take note. Just people don't stop going to Murrayfield because there's a webcast. People don't go to Murrayfield because it's horrible, quite frankly. That the Murrayfield Ice Rink is no better or worse off for having a webcast. In fact, they're probably better off because they're getting a bit of an income from that, whereas they probably wouldn't have it anyway. So that's one thing that doesn't need sorting. The guys and girls are doing a fine enough job of that. Their media needs to be improved. People need to know that team exists. I've lost count the amount of times I've gone to Edinburgh and I've been wearing my hockey jersey, and people have sort of looked at me and gone, "Oh, is that a hockey jersey? Oh, yeah, I'm going to see Nottingham play the Capitals." "Oh, what is that? Is that a team from Edinburgh?" "Yes, it's a team from Edinburgh." "Oh, I didn't know we had ice hockey up here." There's your problem. People just don't know they're there. So you've got to get the word out. There's several things that you can do. One, and I know I've said this before on a previous podcast. Hull Stingrays used to get the local, I forget whether it was the college or the university, they used to get them in to work on the webcast. And
it was the college.
And if any students who were involved in that got to count that, that was part of their grading. That went towards their assignments and all the rest of it. There are several educational institutions in Edinburgh, and I am pretty certain that they could have some sort of link up with them for various things, like your social media, like maybe assisting with the webcast if there is anything else that can be done there, like your match day promotion. Your match night experience. There's just a wealth of resources, and they just don't seem to want to do that. It's almost like, and we've talked about the Panthers, being that local shop for local people. Well, the Edinburgh Capitals organisation seems to be just as bad, if not worse, because they just don't seem to want to accept any outside help. From the outside looking in. Quite happy to be corrected on that if I'm wrong. But, from my perspective, it just seems like they're very insular, and they just don't want other people to be involved. They don't want outsiders to be involved, and they're just hanging on to this kudos of having an ice hockey team and running an ice hockey team. But unfortunately, they're running it into the ground. So it's a decent enough question. And like you say, Ant, we could spend a podcast, just sort of brainstorming ideas on what we could actually change and improve if we were in charge of the Edinburgh Capitals.
We're talking about knocking the ice rink down. We can't. It's listed building. It's a listed building. It's a listed building. I've just looked that up.
Well, there you go then. Then my point still stands. You just have to rip the guts out of the place and start again.
Yeah.
That's where you've got to get. I mean, do what the Panthers did at the old rink. Tell the fans to bring a spanner. They can help. Just why not?
Yeah, but there were only about 170 of them there.
Well, I know, but like that big supermarket chain says, every little helps. Every little helps. We'll stick on the subject of the Capitals. But thank you very much for your question, Sam. To a question from Gail Meaden, and Gail says, does Jordan McLaughlin deserve more credit for how he's handling the expectation to dig the Caps out of a hole when they've had issues with starting netminders? Now, there was a bit of an odd situation with their Russian netminder, Shigalo. He appeared to be serving his 2 weeks' notice, but not serving his 2 weeks' notice, because as soon as it became apparent that he was leaving, he didn't actually play, and I believe McLaughlin stepped in. And their Canadian netminder that they've brought in now, Tyler Beskorowany, is injured. So poor old Jordan McLaughlin seems to be the fall guy at the moment, and he's doing the best he can, to sort of stem the ever flowing tide, I suppose. So, Paul, does he deserve more credit? I mean, obviously he can he can get lost in all the rest of the hoo-ha that's going on with the Caps, I suppose.
It's just one of many things, isn't it? That we've already been talking about. Until I'd watched the highlights, I would have to say that I didn't think what his coach said, D'Orazio, said about him after Sunday night's game was particularly complimentary or particularly fair. Then I watched it and I thought, yeah, he could have done better with some of those. But he's a fairly young kid, I think, who's been dropped in it. I mean, look at the game he played in Nottingham last season, sort of early January. last year, where he kept Capitals in it for a large amount of the game. So I mean it's difficult, but with all this stuff's going on, that's going on. To a lot of the times the good news stuff will get lost in all of all of the stuff that's going on. But that. I don't want to say it's a good news story, but he's. When I saw of him last year, he looked good, but I mean, he didn't have anybody in front of him Sunday night either. Stuff like Tetlow's goal, that happens. That happened the other week to Galbraith. Who's you could say is a lot better netminder. So these things happen, but the thing is, what's it going to do to him as a player playing on a team like that?
Now, and that is an interesting question. Now, when I saw this question, and the one thing that sort of sprung to mind. I mean, I don't know if it's a similar situation or whether it's likely to develop into a similar situation. But if it weren't for Sylvain Cloutier giving Ben Bounds the starting netminder's job at Hull, Ben Bounds probably wouldn't now be enjoying the time that he is now at Cardiff. I mean, let me know if that's an unfair statement. But if you look at somebody like Jordan McLaughlin, and he's getting regular games because of various issues with starting import netminders. Could he? I mean, is the situation at Edinburgh likely to affect his confidence, or does he have the potential? As he's facing, as much of a barrage as he is, does he have the potential to go further? Do you think?
He's definitely got potential. I know we stuck 10 past him, but he made some cracking saves last week. Just unfortunately, he had that horrible one, which Tetlow will no doubt love. And he'll be recounting it for years on end that he scored a screamer from the halfway line. Beckham-esque it was beautiful. Unfortunately, it just took a horrible bounce, and McLaughlin just didn't see it at all. But he wasn't being helped out by the team in front of him. The times that I have seen him in the past, I seem to remember him playing a game down here and he stood on his head. So he's clearly got potential. Unfortunately, when you're in the situation that Edinburgh are in at the moment, with they're only playing 5-6 imports a game and stuff like that, you're going to be on the wrong end of some horrible scores, and it'll be down to McLaughlin that they've not gone to ridiculous 20-30 ISL type scores. So yes, he's got potential. He needs the training. He needs some regular training to fulfil the potential that he's got. It'd be nice if he got himself a starting job. If he wants to do it full time, because I know hockey's not his full time job. If he wants to do it full time, he'd probably be better off seeing if he can get a crack in the ENL. Sorry, is it the no? It's the NIHL now. Sorry, isn't it?
Yes. Well, I think he does play for in the SNL, doesn't he? For the SNL Caps.
See, this is our biggest issue, because we've got there's such a massive gap between our second division and the top tier that when you want the players to improve at a better level, there is nowhere for them to go. So maybe looking into Europe. France is on par, if not slightly below us, team-wise. So it'll be down to him and whether he wants to do it as a full-time job. He's certainly got the potential for it.
Yeah. I mean, I feel very sorry for him. I felt very sorry for him when I was watching the webcast for our game. He didn't deserve to have 10 put past him, because he just didn't have the support in front of him. It was a hard watch after a while. So, but just the next generation of netminders is going to have to come from somewhere, and maybe somebody will see something in him and maybe he's a starting netminder maybe for the future. Who knows? But yeah, like you say, Ant, I think it's probably up to him and where he's going to take that and how seriously he's going to take it. Let's stick with netminding as we're talking about it. We've had a question from Colin Jarman, and he says, if our starting netminder is the same in the midweek games and that netminder excels, does the coach then stick with that netminder for the rest of the regular season? Barring injuries, I suppose. Obviously, we've had enough experience with injured netminders to know that is a possibility. And
we have got to play Sheffield again. Yes,
and we've got to play Sheffield again. Now, one thing I would say to that is that we've got one heck of a schedule this week. The weather has given us an extra one that we really weren't intending to play this week. So, Paul, what do you think? Is it the time now for a defined number one starting netminder for the Panthers, or are we still right to hedge our bets a little bit?
I think the time is coming where we've got to do that. We've got to make that decision because, you're coming towards the period now with the playoffs now where you just got to get somebody who's hot. Whichever team suddenly, gets a bit of form is going to do well, and the netminder is key to that. And I think there are. So I think that would be in. You'd hope that would be in Nielsen's mind. I think there are. It doesn't mean he's going to play every game. I mean, we've got that 3-3 in Scotland in 3 weeks. I would be very surprised if the same netminder played up all three. But I equally wouldn't be at all surprised to see, say, Gospel get that the last game against Edinburgh. Chances are everything will be sewn up for them. I mean, who knows what that game's going to be for Edinburgh?
Who knows if that game's going to go ahead?
Well, yeah. Well, I know a few good pubs in Edinburgh, so we'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll be fine. It's not a problem.
Yeah. Grassmarket, here we come. But yes is the answer.
Okay. Ant, any disagreement on that one?
Well, like you said, it's a pretty horrible schedule over the next week. We've got, 5 games over the next 7 days, so I can see him splitting it. But when you go into playoffs, you've got to go with a hot goal, whoever it may be. Hey, it could be Sam Gospel. But for me, you go with a hot goalie. You've got to go with a hot hand, and then you play on the back of that. And as harsh as it may be to sit either Galbraith or Garnett, I think they'd understand. But I'd also like to think that they are of the persona that if they did lose the number one, they'd be doing everything in their power to get it back again.
That's the sort of the ethos that they've come from, isn't it? It's a very sort of our league sort of thing where there is a real number one netminder. I mean, everybody's going to have a number one, but it's the same with, we've had conversations before about carrying import forwards or import defensemen, or players don't like it. You get NHL, North American players, wherever practically, they're used to it. They're used to having a whole system of farm teams and everything, and players being sent up and down if they're not performing. So they know that this is going to be happening. But what Ant says is right. It's all about how they react to it. Which they should react to it properly because they should be used to it.
Well, you'd have thought so. I mean, I suppose the obvious question is, who do you think will be starting in our midweek games?
I think Galbraith will start tomorrow, and I think Garnett will get Wednesday. And I think they'll split the weekend as well, but I wouldn't like to say which way. I think with Galbraith had a fantastic game in Dundee last weekend, and I think I've said on a previous podcast that for me that does play a part of it when you you go in to face a team. If you've got a goalie, like Brian Stewart did to us time and time again, Brian Stewart was in our heads because you knew he could pull out that sort of performance. And all it takes is a couple of saves to go his way, and momentum carries through that way. So I'd like to see Galbraith go tomorrow, but it won't surprise me to see him split.
We spent a fair amount of time in Brian Stewart's head as well, in fairness.
Well, there is that.
Well, to be fair, it is still all his fault. Right, we'll stay with the Panthers, and I think we'll move on to the coaching. The coaching position, because in case you have been under a rock for the last few weeks, you will know that Corey Nielsen is going to leave the Nottingham Panthers at the end of this season. So we're still. I think so, somebody's probably running a book somewhere on the next Nottingham Panthers coach. So we've had a couple of questions sort of around that. The first one comes from Angus Wilson on Twitter, and he says, when would we expect to hear of a new coach signing, as I think it's the most important signing we will make for next season? And just to maybe start a discussion on that question, Andrew Axon has also been in touch on Twitter, and he suggested Dan Seaman to replace Corey. I don't have an awful lot of knowledge of Dan. I vaguely remember him being the Dundee Stars coach, yes, but other than that, I don't know an awful lot about him. So. Anybody got any thoughts on Dan?
Well, he used to play coach? For us. He used to play for us, and he was in Sheffield as well. Before that, that was before my time. So Paul probably tell you better.
He is the gift that keeps on giving comedically.
Well, yes, there is that. I can just remember him coaching Dundee. I can't actually remember him ending up leaving Dundee and going to Fife, but according to Elite Prospects, that's exactly what he did. So I'm assuming he got sacked in Dundee, and then Fife picked him up as a player. He didn't do too bad in Dundee that first season.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I can't, my memory's like it's like Brian Stewart's glove hand, quite frankly.
As you're looking on Elite Prospects, Ant, does it give you any clue as to where he's been since then?
Yes, but he's been doing quite well in Denmark at somewhere that. Hang on, stop messing me about. Somewhere that proves I hadn't prepared. Here we are. I can't pronounce that. Sunderjiski. Yeah. Where he was champion a couple of times. Bronze game lost, quarter-final lost, and he left either 3 days ago or sometime on the 3rd of February, depending how these do their their dates. But I don't remember him. I don't remember him much as a coach. I mean, he had a season and a bit at Dundee, but it's a name that's in there. He knows Nottingham, whether that is a good or bad thing. Only he will know. But it's the first of many names, I suspect, that are going to go into the melting pot.
I think he's way down the list of first names. I mean, we've already had Sean from This Is England being mentioned. Obviously, David Clark.
Any mention of Lee Jimman yet?
No. Well, I'm going to say, didn't I'm sure I saw somebody on Twitter. It might have even been Andy Haywood, actually. Andy might have put his name in already. But yeah, to answer the first question, should we have any expectation of hearing about, of hearing who the new coach is going to be? Just to use an example that I've certainly cited before, it was rumoured that we lost out on re-signing Guy Doucette because the coaching position was still up in the air. There was no deal on the table for Corey Nielsen at the time. So, Cardiff sort of jumped in and nabbed him off. Well, I say nabbed him off as he was only signed until the end of the season, but that's a potential re-signing that we could have made and didn't, because he didn't want to, allegedly, didn't want to hang around and see what the coaching position was going to end up like. But I think, go on.
I think Angus is right. It is the most important signing we
well, I was just going to say that. Yeah, I agree with him.
Yeah. So basically, knowing the speed with which Panthers sign players, it's probably about October.
Well, you'd like to think the visa would be in place before that, but stranger things have happened.
Pete Russell don't need one.
Yeah, exactly. There's another name.
That's what I was on about. I'm going to send you a picture. You'll see what I mean.
Oh dear.
You have remembered we're on when this is not a visual medium.
Yeah, no. Cat's Whiskers TV has long since expired.
TV, those were the days.
Yeah, but in answer to Angus's question, yes, the coach's signing is probably the most important one we're going to make, and I think I mean, to be honest, it may very well have a bearing on the return of some imports who are not contracted to a second year. Or in some cases, not contracted to next year. So
it's going to depend, isn't it? I mean, it's whether the new coach wants them or not. As much as whether they want to come back.
Yes,
a new coach you would hope will have a new set of ideas and be allowed to act on them.
Yes, and that may lead nicely on to another question we've had from Mark at PAC at Mr. Pack 75 on Twitter. He says, if you had the money, would you buy the Panthers, and what would you change, if anything? Bit of a poison chalice, isn't it? Would you buy the Panthers?
I'd buy Edinburgh instead.
Well, the only way is up, really, isn't it? There's very little expectation, but. I mean that's a fair point to make straight off the bat. There's an awful lot of expectation from the Panthers fan base. We're a very demanding bunch in general. So
I don't necessarily think we are.
Go on, explain yourself.
I think we might be, but I think there are any number of fans out there who are quite happy to, they seem just excited to just sort of bumble along and not get any, yes, they like to win stuff, but they're not that bothered if we don't. It's marvellous and wonderful. I mean, I would say that there are other fan bases in this country. I'm looking at Sheffield for one, who are worse. And I think it's got worse since we won the league, which I appreciate, Tina, as much as you can remember.
Hey.
Nice. But I think that it was like, we've never won the league, we're never going to win the league. These trophies, these cups are all right. And then we did win the league, and there are plenty of people to say we've got all this money, which means we should be doing better and all this, that, and the other, in the way that they're either right or they're wrong or whatever. But I think there is still that. Look at they're a lovely bunch of lads. Look, how many times do you see, we didn't win tonight, but one of the players passed me a puck, so I'm happy. I mean, that's fine. If that's what you want to take from a game, if that's, you pay your money, you take your choice. So if you want to do that, that's fine. If I want to sit there and be grumpy and miserable and moan about things, then that's my right too. But getting back to the question, before we get taken off the air, if you had the money, would you buy the Panthers? Yeah, right, it is a poison chalice. And what would you change? I'd change one thing, and this is something that I'm sure the club would argue. I'd change the whole ethos of the club. Nothing much. I only want to change one thing. The whole ethos of the club.
It's quite a big thing, though, to be fair.
Only one thing. Yeah. And that's the ethos. Because I don't necessarily feel that we're all about winning. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't believe 2 Point Tony's cobblers about the teams are too busy to do school visits. They're all watching. If the team are also all hard at work watching game tapes, Why is Paul Thompson commentating for the BBC at the Olympics? I mean, all right, he only had to go over to Salford. But surely he should be watching those tapes as well, telling them what to look for. But, you know, we had a... I don't know if it was last week or the week before, where there was a quiz night one night, there was a sponsor skate another day, then they did something else the day after. And don't get me wrong, you can only train for so long before you get bored. But it just seems to me that we're putting all this stuff in place where there's other things we would be better served doing. So, yeah, that's what I changed, the whole ethos of the club.
Well, not too much then. Ant, would you be any more or less demanding if you were to buy the Panthers?
I don't think I will, but I will touch on what Paul said there, because I've seen this comment float around as well about but it's okay, the quiz is sold out, yada, yada, yada. The thing is, we were crying out not so long ago for a bit more interaction with the team. And it's almost one of these, you can't win either way. You could have a team that is uber successful, but then you're going to alienate 50% of people because they do nothing with the fans. They, you know, what have you. And then you've got the other side of fans where we are now, where we're going for a run where we're not as successful. We're not doing as well as we like to, and maybe as we should. But we're interacting with the fans and that sort of thing. You need to both, and I don't see how we can't do both. Look at how Cardiff are run. Look at how Belfast celebrate trophies. I mean, look what they did when they won the league in record time after our year. When they, you know, what I think was Kelman still there. He went up to the office and got the trophy off Moran, and they advertised it to all their fans that were in Nottingham. We're in Hooters, come down and join us, and everybody was taking pictures with it. You see it last night. All the fans are in the bar with the team after the game. They're having drinks from the trophy. They're having pictures with the trophy, and that didn't cost them a damn thing. I think the problem with our team,
it cost us a tenner.
Exactly. It would be lovely to get a professional photo done, and I'm not denying that whatsoever. But that's it. With the Panthers, that's as far as they go. You know, you don't then have that bond with them. The last time I remember that happening is my first full season when we won the Challenge Cup. And I remember Steve Peltier coming into T&D after the game with the trophy, with a couple of the other players, and we're all in there and we were singing and dancing with the trophy and what have you. And I've not seen anything like that since, because the club want to control it all. So for me, it's not too dissimilar to what Paul said. I want to change the ethos to the club. I want the club to be put the fans first. But that means doing all we can to be successful, but not shying away from their engagement with the fans.
In fairness, last time we won the playoffs, Lawrence and Wheatman and
McMillan. Yeah, I know what you're going to say, because I was going to say it as well. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, put trophies down from the
balcony.
And then Jansen, I think it was Lawrence, took it into the castle. Probably Lawrence stayed there. I don't know, but yeah, but you're right. You're right picking that up. I mean, I made a terrible mistake with my picture with the 3 trophies. It's got Bullard on it. But yeah, you know, we you know.
Well, the thing, sorry, Paul. Before
you get told not to touch it, so I touched all 3 of them, and I don't care.
Well, just one thing to add to, because obviously, you know, we both have the same story in our head there. When, you know, we've had the balcony scenes, you know, where you know, they all come out to the balcony and, you know, they all flash the whatever trophies it is that we've won, and, you know,
those were a wide pair of shorts Kowalski used to wear, weren't they?
Oh yeah, and
the trophies did flash there.
I seem to recall as well one or two players one year opening their beers and, like, you know, and spraying everybody with it like champagne bottles. But yeah, there was that time that Lawrence and McMillan and Jansen and whoever it was, they came downstairs with the trophies, and everybody had dispersed by then because we just didn't expect them to turn up. And you know, they were there and just, you know, just sort of came down with the trophies, looking around, going, "Where the hell is everybody?" And it's like, well, we didn't expect you to be permitted to come down and mingle with us and do that.
There were people there desperately trying to usher them away. But let me ask both of you a question. Do you feel a bond between yourselves and the team, and not so much the team as the Nottingham Panthers, because clearly we must have, or we wouldn't keep going back, but as the players, do you feel any sort of bond with them, given what we've just been talking about, the way they're held almost at arm's length until you pay money and then you get access?
That's the spot on, because I'm not a sponsor. I can't afford to be a sponsor, so no. As a normal fan who has travelled the length and breadth of this country, I have gone to, I'm a season ticket holder of now, 6, 7, 8 years, something ridiculous. We don't even get our little. Well, yeah.
I was going to say, just don't use that phrase.
Toy anymore. I remember first getting my season ticket. I was quite excited that first year. I thought, I can get to the Masters football at the end of the season for free as well. That's fantastic. And then they stopped doing that.
Did you tweet a picture of it?
No, I didn't. But yeah, I just don't seem to. You get, it's a lot better now with the social media side of things, but I don't get that same sort of buzz or feel about the club as you see fans from other teams getting with theirs. I do feel that they are very standoffish, and that it's all well and good if you're a sponsor and you get to go to all these exclusive events and what have you, but other than that,
is it that they're standoffish, or is it that they're being held at arm's length? I mean, look at the time you guys have been to the events and you've got the interviews. Was that difficult to get, or
No, not at all.
No, exactly. So it's not that they're standoffish; it's just that it's almost like they're being held apart. To me, that's how it feels. Anyway,
one thing I will say is that there are some players who just really don't like that sort of thing. They're not. They're not overly sociable people. They don't necessarily have great conversational skills, or they just don't like people. There are hockey players. Well, we all have days like that. But there are some hockey players who, they're not really into all the promotional side of it. They just want to play hockey, and they don't really care for all the fuss, fanfare, and bunting that is apparently in their contract. For them to all the little extras and stuff. So you can't expect every single hockey player, in every league, in every country, to be, sociable, and you can't force them to strike up a conversation with people. You can't force them to like the fans. So some of them just don't. So, you have to sort of account for that a little bit. But I get what you say. I mean, I am a sponsor, and so I went to a sponsor's skate. I could have probably not gone. I was feeling a bit lazy that evening, but I had promised my 11-year-old niece that I would take her. So I was kind of hog-tied to it, and I tried to sort of palm her off on a couple of players, just so I could get a few interviews done. And she did roll her eyes at me. Every time I sort of got my phone out, she was like, "Oh God, you're doing another one."
Why did you just fallen over again?
Yeah. Well, she did manage to take Jono out in front of a group of players, so that was fun. That was fun for him. But yeah, I would say, I mean, let's get a little bit closer to home. I mean, the players up until recently have been held at arm's length from us. I mean, now we can ask if to do interviews, and that's recent. I mean, up until recently, we got nothing. Not even a response to our emails. So, there is a level of control that does exist within the club, I think, and it would be nice to have that not removed as such, because I think you do need to, retain a certain level of control, propriety, and conduct yourselves as a professional organisation. But there is probably a little too much, shall we say?
But on the other side of the coin, and we will move on to something after this, I think. The players or the players' families. I know Matt Francis's dad used to watch those because he told me he grabbed hold of me. He's got a very strong grip on the concourse, that year, and he actually said, "Why this is the first team he's ever played for that doesn't do a webcast? What's that all about?" But and obviously, Evan Mosey's dad does, because I got into trouble once.
And he's never let you forget it.
And I don't suppose he is ever going to either. But that's fine. That's right. I'd rather have somebody. It proves there's somebody out there listening. Shall we move on?
Yeah, go on then.
Yes. Should we talk about the Challenge Cup?
Let's talk about the Challenge Cup.
By the way, I want to ask a question for the two of you.
Go on then.
When the hell did they change the trophy again from that fake Premier League trophy rip-off that we provided?
Has Lacko broken another one?
I don't know. I'm just looking at all the pictures of my mates with the with the trophy from last night and at the airport tonight. It's a completely different trophy again.
I've got no idea. Nice. Do you know? I wouldn't, if you put a row of trophies in front of me, I would not be able to pick the Challenge Cup trophy out. That's terrible, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, we've not won it for a little while, so I don't really care.
Can we just have before we talk about the Challenge Cup, though? Can we just have a moment of seriousness? And I think I'd ask everybody in ice hockey to think about somebody who's suffering tonight, because this is the first year in I think the last 7 where Matthew Myers hasn't won the Challenge Cup.
Oh,
I know. So I think we've all got to understand that no matter how bad our lives are, there's somebody out there who's suffering more than us. Matthew, feel your pain.
Oh dear. Let's
still got a league title to
come.
Yeah.
And congratulations, that's moved on. With the IHL, let's start with people who are actually there. With the Challenge Cup selling out 2 years running, is the EIHL smart on holding the final in Cardiff, or should it be moved to a bigger venue, or should the final become? Is that a word? A two-legged affair? And that's from Carl Inager, I'm guessing. Tina.
No. To that last part, should it become a two-legged? Should it revert? That's the word. Revert.
That's the word. Yeah.
Should it revert to a two-legged affair? No. Absolutely not. 100% no. It should never have been a two-legged final. A final is a final. End of story. I know the Stanley Cup final is a 7-game series, but this is not Canada. This is just no. But yeah, with it selling out. I've seen a lot of comments recently. I mean, I did a graph I put a graph out last week for Elite League attendances, average attendances, and it's showing Cardiff at the moment are running at 96%. So they're selling out an awful lot of games. And one recurring comment that was coming back from that was Cardiff. I bet Cardiff are regretting, capping their attendance at just over 3,000. It just shows that Cardiff need a bigger rink. Blah blah blah. I think it helps that Cardiff have been in it the last 2 years. That almost guarantees you a sellout anyway. I think the litmus test for it is the first year that Cardiff aren't in the final, and it's at Ice Arena Wales. If it sells out then as well, then yeah, fine, maybe you can put a case forward.
Yeah. You could say that we took 3,000 to Sheffield the other year, which we probably did.
Yeah, we did sort of fill out a whole side. We did fill out a whole side, but that's too big. Sheffield Arena's that's too big for a one-off final, and I think that's probably why.
Unless Sheffield are in it.
Well, yeah.
So yeah, it's too big.
But yeah, it's. But yeah,
Nottingham would be just about the right size, wouldn't it?
Well, it would, but we've already got playoffs, so I mean that just doesn't. It just doesn't work. I mean, I get the logic for having it at Ice Arena Wales, and you know, I think we could probably I could give a more definitive answer to that if we get to a point where Cardiff aren't in it. So maybe next year they don't get to the final. It's two completely different teams. You know, let's say I don't know, Manchester and Belfast, perhaps. Then you get to see, you know, whether or not it's the right decision. I think because it's Cardiff and Cardiff are selling out their barn so regularly, I think that's a factor at the minute for me.
What about Bread?
What about him?
4,000.
Yeah.
Perfect size, but is it just too far out of the way?
I'll tell you where it will be good. Metro Arena in Newcastle.
Hey!
About the right size. And, yeah.
Good, a cracking night out as well.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Okay, so we've covered the people who get there. I mean, I agree with Tina entirely about the two leg. I don't know about you, Anne, but a one leg. I'll love a one leg final. Two leg finals. First leg just feels like a joke without a punchline. You know, it's like it's all build up and then well, something might happen in the next game, something might not. There's no sense of occasion, and a final should have a sense of occasion for me.
I get that. I think I liked the two-leg affair because of what we've been discussing in that the teams, you're relying on the host team, if you like, to get to the final. I think for it to be a ticket seller. So at least with the two-leg affair, you're definitely going to get you should get a big crowd for either leg, probably the second leg. Obviously, I've mentioned Brayhead would be a decent venue. Unfortunately, it's a bit out of the way. But it'd be nice, same for the playoffs. It'd be nice if we had a venue that was kitted out just for the event. I mean, I love having playoffs in Nottingham, and I've said many a time, at the end of the day, it is the National Ice Centre. This is the equivalent of Wembley Stadium for ice events in the UK. So that alone, I mean, Tottenham are playing at Wembley. Nobody's whinging about the FA Cup final being at Tottenham's home ground.
Oh yeah,
that I know of. So Nottingham would be perfect, wouldn't it? We're at the centre of the country. We've got good transport links. But yeah, I think it would be a bit overkill having the cup final and the playoffs as well. But it'd be nice if we could have a neutral venue, a neutral venue, Birmingham, something like that.
So Nottingham,
yeah, because we won't be in there.
Yeah. Talking about not being there, Ant.
Yeah,
we've had a question from Steve Ollerton. Were the IHL right to offer the Challenge Cup as a webcast when the BBL final have their cup final on Free Sports and the BBC Red Button?
It's a joke, isn't it?
Was it 15 quid?
Yeah, 15
That's
quid.
A joke.
15 quid for the webcast.
Yeah.
And last year it was it last year? Was it at the Red Button or was it the year we won it?
No, it was the year.
The year we won it.
Yeah, it was a webcast last year. Because remember, they did the thing that you can pre-book your tickets, but if your team doesn't get there, they'll give you £2 off the webcast.
Yeah,
last year. Which
I remember.
You had to pay £2 to pre-book your tickets, but hey, you could have £2 off the webcast. Mind you, if your team don't get there, you're going to bother with a webcast.
Yeah, I just don't understand the Elite League's rationale for this anti-TV thing that they seem to be having. I mean, was it Chris Ellis I saw a tweet from that stated that
I was just looking for that,
want
actually.
to show more.
Yes.
And it's like they've had it on the red button in the past. Why can't you do it? What is the major malfunction for treating your fans who want to watch the game and making it as accessible as possible to everybody? If it had been on the red button, I would have watched that game yesterday. But I ain't paying £15 for a game that I hope.
Yeah, you're not emotionally invested in it.
If you turn that round, that's the point. If you watch it on the red button, they don't get £15.
Oh yeah, but you've got to think exposure and whatever. I just don't understand the league's anti-TV
massively short-sighted. Tina, anything else to add?
I don't think there's anything new to add. I mean, we left behind the Premier Sports deal because apparently we wanted to explore free-to-air options. Premier Sports now have a free-to-air channel. I am absolutely baffled as to why we can't have any kind of negotiation. Yes, it may involve a little bit of the Elite League going back to Premier Sports with the tail between their legs, but, Jesus, swallow your pride. Otherwise, this sport is going to remain the best kept secret in the country. The best attended is sport outside of football and rugby, rugby and cricket, and we're just going to be sat, talking about hockey to all of our friends who are not hockey fans, and they're going, oh, that's nice. Where can I watch it? Where can I try and get into? Oh, well, you've got to come to a game. Oh, I don't know if I want to come to a game. I'd quite like to watch it on telly and see if I can get interested in it. It's just there's all those sorts of scenarios. So if the excuse to leave Premier Sports behind is that we wanted free to air, well, they've got free to air, so go and talk to them.
We got free to air on a channel that was only otherwise showing poker.
Oh, I know. Yeah, wasn't that an absolute disaster? But I do feel for the clubs.
A show that you could have watched on the internet earlier in the week if you wanted to watch everybody else's highlights.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, I feel for the guys who do the webcasts. I mean, Ice Time TV did the webcast. They're really good. I mean, if we start having games regularly on the telly, then obviously that's income that they're going to miss out on. So, where do they go? How much of an influence is that going to have on their business, and are they going to be able to sustain themselves if they are going to have to take a hit to the pocket every now and then with if the BBC or Free Sports are going to pick up Elite League games. I mean, it's not going to make a blind bit of difference to us or Brayhead because we insist on not bothering to have a webcast because we live in the dark ages. But
if you look at the Premier Sports deal that we know was offered, they offered to pay the Elite League to broadcast the games for 2 years. Yeah. And it was a weekly highlight show and then a month, I believe it was a monthly game plus playoffs. Surely the money that they were prepared to pay the league would offset that.
I don't know, because I mean, what sort of arrangement do the people doing the webcast have with the clubs that they serve and also the league itself? I mean, are those webcasters likely to be compensated? Are they going to be beneficiaries? Would they have been beneficiaries of that money? That's a big question mark. So, I can understand where the argument sits for those guys, but in terms of the league and the exposure that it desperately needs, it's a no-brainer. Why are we not talking to these people? But they're apparently having these monthly board meetings. Why is this not higher up on the agenda? I just don't know.
I will mention
attendances are up.
Oh yeah.
So we need the exposure. Attendances are up.
Yeah, I will mention though there was a question I saw on one of the Facebook pages that was saying why is it ridiculous? Why can't we have a TV deal? Anything would be better than nothing. I'm sorry, it wouldn't be. It has to be the right package.
Well, yeah,
it's no good
Yeah.
There's no good just having your internet available highlights all strewn together, one after the other, as we got on that the free channel that we had a couple of years ago. There's no point because you've already got that.
I never watched
I think
that.
if you're going to do a highlight show, you have to do it based like we had previously when it was Simsy heading up the coverage and it was mainly Strachan that were on it. They showed the highlights of the games. They talked together about the games. You basic your match of the day style thing, where you've got some sort of something else to offer other than just showing the highlights, which you can get on a Monday, Tuesday, sometimes even a Sunday.
Yes. So, unless we've got anything else to add on that, we should probably wrap up with the last question of the evening, gents. So this comes from Dan Wickets. He says, does there need to be better contingency for bad weather, considering that some teams now have a fixture pile up after last week's snow? Who wants to come in on that first?
I just asked the question, how? What should we do? When was the last time anybody can remember us having a game cancelled because of bad weather? We've had it's been freak weather. It's this last week. I don't think anybody could have foreseen quite how bad the beast from the east or whatever you want to call it was. I mean, the Dutch apparently called it the Siberian bear, which is quite nice. If this had happened in November, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It's just when it's happened, and I don't see how you could do it. I mean, the other thing that I don't understand is I always thought the beast from the east was Martin Toomer.
The beast from the east has always been and always shall ever be Bam Bam Bigelow.
Oh dear, I have no idea what you're talking about now. I just haven't got a clue. I mean, to answer this particular question, yes, I think you're right, Paul. I think the timing of it is unfortunate, but it's like the whole conversation, in a broader sense, where people are talking on the news saying we need a contingency for this kind of weather, generally for the country. And it's like, why? We haven't had snow this bad for 2 decades or more, and would it really be worth it? Would it really be worth investing in all this, whatever infrastructure and whatever equipment we would need to account for this kind of weather? Do we really need it? Because we won't use it for another couple of decades. But I mean, yes, it's unfortunate that there were games cancelled left, right, and centre because of the weather. But how many times? I mean, well, but Paul, I suppose you're better placed to answer this particular question. But how many times have you seen a scenario like this in British ice hockey?
I thought you meant like just snow ever.
Well, no, just like the weather affecting fixtures like this.
I honestly can't. I was trying to think. The only game I can remember being cancelled was Panthers were playing somewhere in Scotland, and Nottingham was particularly badly hit, or so they claimed, and we couldn't travel. But I
can remember us not being able to get to Cardiff for a game because I had mates that got there, but the coach couldn't.
Yeah, the coach barely set it off. But it's hardly ever happened. So to sit there and have contingency plans for something that is never really going to happen. I mean, it might happen next year. It might not happen for another 20. But I honestly don't think it's possible. Perhaps we ought to have a winter break.
A winter break for a winter sport. Now there's a thing. Right, that's everything that we have.
We have one more question. Question that's coming from Twitter from Anthony Russell at Banners on the Wall. I think I've got his name right. He also wanted to throw in the mix the question of whether we should be scared that we're going to the wire in NIHL 1 South and might have to win it on goal difference.
Oh, now there's an exciting title chase, isn't there?
Yeah, scared? You want to count yourself bloody lucky. I'd give me right arm to lose this league on goal difference at this point.
I'm assuming that's Basingstoke, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
good luck to him.
And I do enjoy his banner picture on the Twitter account as well. It's a nice picture there.
Well, thank you very much for getting in touch. And yes, I'm. Unless Paul wants to surprise me with any other questions that he's seen that I haven't, then I think we'll wrap it up at that. So thank you very much to everybody who sent questions in. Thank you very much to anybody who got in touch during the show. And I would like to say thank you very much to Paul Baum.
No problem.
And Antoine Marie-Jean.
No problem, and thanks to you for hosting, Tina.
Well, I think
the host never gets thanked.
It was more of a joint effort
go.
tonight. Actually, it was more of a joint effort. I quite enjoyed the shared responsibility tonight. So, but yes. Anyway,
I just like interrupting people.
Yeah. Well, yes, that too. We will be back.
But
on
you already
Thursday.
knew that, Tina.
Yes, I did. We'll be back on Thursday for our review podcast this week, and hopefully normal service will resume next week, where we will hopefully, pending any other cancelled games, hopefully have our review show back on Monday. So until then, ta-da.
This edition of the Cat's Whiskers podcast was brought to you by the Bunkers Hill Hockley.